For more on the situation in Ukraine, we turn now to Stephen Fish. He's a professor of political science at the University of California in Berkeley. Welcome to the show. You know, things continue to move rapidly in Ukraine. There are new reports of warning shots fired. What could be the tipping point here? Could maybe perhaps another event like that push things over the edge?
It could, Elaine. It's very hard to assess the situation right now on the ground from here. I think even on the ground it's difficult. I certainly think that any effort by Russian forces to move into eastern Ukraine, into provinces outside of the small province of Crimea in the far southern Ukraine, any effort to actually move forces into those eastern and southern Ukrainian provinces besides Crimea that have large Russian-speaking populations would be a tipping point for sure.
What do you see as the options for the U.S. and the EU for scaling back this crisis? Because for all intents and purposes, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry seems to have a fairly good working relationship with Sergei Lavrov. Could they work something out?
I don't think so. I think this is Putin's decision. I think he's decided to push through with this. I think the world is shocked by this because it's not the Putin that we've come to know. The Putin we've come to know is cold and calculating and patient when it comes to international crises and international problems, the same way he is with domestic politics. This time it's very different. He is not acting in his usual cool, patient, calculated way. He's acting brashly and impulsively, and I think the world is having a hard time figuring out what to make of this.
Well, economic sanctions against Russia seem to be on the cards. It's being talked about, but could that be enough to exert pressure on President Putin?
It will. Economic sanctions could exert pressure on Putin. I don't think they're going to be enough to make him roll his forces back out of Crimea. There's really only so much that the West can do in strictly economic terms. It can make him pay somewhat for this, but I think he's clearly so committed to this operation in Ukraine that I can't see him being dissuaded from the operation just by economic sanctions alone. They can hurt, but I think the bigger damage to Putin is going to be his international reputation. It's going to be the fact also that any future cooperation on Syria and Iran and nuclear arms control and trade and other big issues where the United States and the European Union and Russia all have some common interests, progress on all those issues is now going to be on ice. And if Russian troops enter eastern Ukraine, I think it's going to get even worse than that.
All right, Stephen Fish, thank you so much for joining us from
Pleasure.
California.